Have you ever heard of the vehicular cyclists? So, okay, this is in this video. First, I'm going to talk about vehicular cycling as like a movement. Who the vehicular cyclists are, what they're into, what they do, and the weird ways that they might be sabotaging cycling and messing with cyclists. I'm talking about cycling for getting around, for commuting, so-called utilitarian cycling. Yeah, the weird stuff that they do to other cyclists, the weird stuff that they do with like cycling in general, and then I'm going to go into my own story of vehicular cycling, how I became one, all the crazy experiences that I had that made me give up on it, and the stuff that I ended up doing to make it work for me, because it doesn't work. So first of all, the vehicular cyclist. People say this started with a man named John Forrester in the States. His idea was, cyclists don't need bike lanes. We don't need special infrastructure. And we should use the road the way that drivers do, confidently and assertively. Doing stuff like taking the lane, cycling in the center of a traffic lane, using lane control, controlling the lane, doing all the stuff that drivers do to get along with the drivers. And then additionally, if we're slowing down drivers, because of course we're going slower because we're cyclists, we take the opportunity to release them. So we pull over out of the way and let them pass us and whatever. And but you only need to do that, of course, when the road is just absolutely full and they're stuck behind you. This all started in the U.S. around the time in Europe when the Europeans were deciding, this is dumb, let's just make space for cycling and keep cyclists separate from drivers, and they managed to have a whole bunch of success with that. In the U.S., John Forrester's scheme was really popular with Americans, especially American transportation planners, because it meant they didn't have to do anything to accommodate cyclists. And I think, the conspiracy theorist in me thinks it was also popular with American transportation planners because it's always been such a complete abject failure that it makes driving continue to be more or less compulsory. So this might sound like a bit of a stretch, but if you've heard about the American General Motors streetcar conspiracy, then it doesn't seem so wild. Like when it comes to preventing people from cycling as for transportation in the US and by extension in Canada, nothing's really off the table. There's all sorts of, this hasn't been explored very well, but I think in the future we're going to find out about a whole bunch of things that Americans have done to, and Canadians have done to make sure that the automobile industry and the oil sector never has to compete with cycling for the transportation market. And I think that vehicular cycling has and still does play a role in this sabotage of commuter cycling. So in Canada we have this thing called CanBike. This is this is the only accredited institution for training people how to use a bicycle on the road for commuting in traffic. And surprise, surprise, the original CanBike instructors went to study in the US with John Forrester, they did a pilgrimage to visit the guru of vehicular cycling. And he trained them on, and then they came back to Canada and made a uniquely Canadian version of this thing. So in Canada, if you are, say, a police officer who's becoming part of the bike patrol unit, you take the CAN bike course. It's like the cyclist version of the Young Drivers of Canada course that I took when I was a young driver. Young Drivers of Canada was awesome. All the stuff that most drivers have to learn from like years of close calls and bullshit, I learned in a classroom and then out on the road with instructors, and it was something that like my granny, my grandparents, they did two really interesting things with their grandchildren, with all of us. Anyone who made it to the age of 18 without being a smoker, they gave $1,000 to. And the other thing is, they all paid for this this driving course. It was good. It was cool. CAN bike, not so much. The CAN bike course is like, I think it's designed to number one, make cyclists think that this is the option you have. And you don't need bike lanes because you can do this, and this is the only way to ride your bike on the road, to drive your bicycle. And if you can't do this, if this doesn't work for you, you're doing it wrong, there's something wrong with you. This is something that the vehicular cyclist evangelists say all the time is, they say, you're not being assertive enough. They say, this is after they've already said, like, you're not using the right part of the lane, and you've said, yeah, I'm using the right part of the lane. I'm doing exactly what I've been told to do. Second thing they say, so they'll be like, you're not assertive enough. And the second thing they'll say is, all these experiences you say you're having, where drivers are hazing you, where drivers are bullying you, where they're deliberately close passing you, blah, 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 blah. You're overstating it because you want bike lanes. And you're trying to put in bike lanes on the roads that we rely on every day to get where we're going, doing this thing that you've never seen anyone do on the road, but doing this thing that absolutely works and that we've been doing for decades with total success. And yeah, okay, every once in a blue moon, some driver will honk and yell at us and whatever. But if you can't tolerate that, then you don't need to be even trying to use the road. Just get on the bus. Just use a bus. Just don't be a cyclist, whatever. This is the attitude. So the first thing is to indoctrinate people into this idea that this is the way to do things. If you can't do things this way, if you're not assertive enough, whatever, then you don't need to be a cyclist. And then the second phase of it, I think, is after somebody actually tries to put this into practice, the inevitable result of drivers hazing the living shit out of you when you're doing this absolutely correctly, absolutely as you've been instructed to do. I think the intention is for people to be like, yeah, I'm just not assertive enough. I just don't have the special sauce. I don't have the, I just can't do the Jedi mind tricks on the drivers that are behind me that these other vehicular cyclists can do. And cycling is just not for me. And that's how people become drivers. That's how people go through a phase of trying to be a commuter cyclist, and then they're like, yeah, no, this isn't for me. I'm not this type of person. And then they become drivers. So the dark side of this story, the conspiracy theory that I have about this is that vehicular cycling as a movement is a diabolical, act of sabotage designed to actually turn wannabe cyclists into drivers. So it's a way of selling cars by training people how to ride bicycles. I know how fucked up that sounds. The light side of it is maybe these people do have a lot of success with what they're doing. Maybe they're downplaying the bad stuff that drivers are doing them a little bit just to not dissuade people from trying it. And maybe I am doing something wrong. So in every single one of my conversations online with these people, because I don't find them in real life, every once in a while I see somebody doing this in real life. It's like, I don't know. It's just so rare. Like, it's super, super rare. I don't know any of them personally. They won't make friends with me because I'm the other type of saboteur. Like, I see them as saboteurs of cycling, and they see me as a saboteur of cycling because they think I want to take away all their road space and put in bike lanes that they are going to be forced to use, and that while right now their commutes are pretty chill and all the drivers are being respectful, as soon as bike lanes go in, those same drivers are going to be like, hey, get the fuck in the bike lane. What the fuck are you doing on the road, you crazy bastard? Which, does happen. So we both see each other as, like, both my group of people and the vehicular cyclist group of people see each other as trying to fuck each other up, as trying to fuck each other's commutes up, and trying to sabotage cycling for everybody. The thing is, these conversations always end with them saying, you're doing it wrong. Me saying, I'm doing it right and the results are bad. Them saying, the results that you're reporting they don't happen to me. And I don't believe that they happen to you either. I think you're lying. I think you're trying to promote cycling infrastructure. And they have their own conspiracy theories about how people are getting paid to promote cycling infrastructure because somehow you can make money asking for bike lanes. They have another conspiracy theory about how bike lanes are the invention of motorists to try to get cyclists off the road, and they think that by first getting people to demand bike lanes and then building crappy bike lanes that aren't really usable, that is a good way to sabotage cycling for commuting. And that's true. Building shit bike lanes is a good way to sabotage cycling. And that probably does happen. Of course, I would never suggest that it's intentional. Because who would want to sabotage cycling? I mean, it's not like we have a history of America's biggest corporation totally sabotaging another form of transportation for their own profits. Of course we don't. It's not like that's the context. So anyway, unfortunately that is the context. So the people like me and people like the vehicular cyclists, we've got every reason to be suspicious of each other. And we never sit down in person and hash it out, which is one of the problems. We're discussing this stuff online, and one of the things that makes me suspicious and how do you say it, skeptical, is I'm sure by sheer coincidence, none of the vehicular cyclists just happen to be the type of cyclists who have cameras on their bikes and record their commutes. So whether I'm trying to get one of these people to prove that what they are saying is true, that the incidences of bullying from drivers and stuff are pretty rare when you're doing this right, or whether I'm trying to see what they are doing that I am not doing that makes this work out for them, the video is just not available. I can find one person on the internet, on YouTube, who has uploaded video of like full commutes where he's, it's a really useful instruction for vehicular cycling because he narrates what he's doing. So if you're trying to learn vehicular cycling, which I do recommend because I'm also a vehicular cyclist, if you're trying to learn how to do it, aside from spending hundreds of dollars and taking a course and being gaslit by these weirdos in person, you can watch this channel, and it's called Cycling Savvy or Savvy Cycling. So this guy bikes around LA on massive arterials on his bicycle using lane control, and the results are pretty good. And he just happens to be doing it with a microphone that is super duper visible and mounted really high in the air. So I'm sure that wouldn't influence the driver behavior. I mean, I'm sure if the camera wasn't super visible and it was just a normal GoPro or something like that that was kind of camouflaged on the back of his bike, I'm sure that the driver response to what he's doing would be absolutely the same. I mean, of course, right? Why would it make any difference? It's not going to... Nobody behaves differently when they know that they're being videotaped. I mean, Dorian, what do you think? So anyway, this is what the vehicular cyclist evangelists and the drivers drivers and pedestrians who claim that like most cyclists are doing unsafe stuff on the road and most cyclists are disobeying the law and stuff like that. This is what those two groups of people have in common. None of them fucking use cameras. And none of them have like, here's my footage of me doing an entire commute demonstrating what I am claiming. It's just, you know, there's so many of them all over Facebook, all over YouTube, all over the internet, in the comments section. You would think that some of them would have fucking video, and none of them do. So, yeah, the conversations invariably end up with us denying each other's lived experiences, me still not having something that I can say to some friend of mine who's like, how do I do this? I want to start cycling. I want to start commuting with my bike. How do I do that? I'll never forget, like years ago, this person asked me, I was helping them fix their bike, and she asked me, I'm just starting out with commuting by bike. What part of the road do I use? And I'm like, well, you don't want to be on the edge of the road because it's dangerous. You know, you might be sort of encouraging drivers to think that they can pass you without changing lanes, and that's going to be a bit too close. And the edge of the road is, you know, it's kind of full of debris. You're too close to the curb, so you can't really go fast enough to, like, so you want to use the center of the curb lane and go fast there, and you basically want to be going the speed that you want to go in a place where that speed is comfortable, and then I'm trying to figure out how to work in the issue of like what happens when somebody rides their bike in the middle of the curb lane of some arterial road with drivers present. Because this is where it gets really fucked up, because this is where it diverges. This is where the vehicular cyclists say, when the drivers come up behind you and they're honking like crazy. Oh, let me back this up. This is when the vehicular cyclists say, have a mirror. Be checking the mirror. As soon as you see the drivers behind you, you do timely acknowledgement. You make sure that they know that you know that they are there. And then, you know, if you're slowing them down, if you're holding them up, then you take the earliest available opportunity to get somewhere out of their way safely. And before doing that, you signal. And if they, if while you are doing this, they charge you from behind and then tailgate you, and they're revving their engine, they're pretending they're about to hit you, and this is what the vehicular cyclists don't want to talk about. They're like, you do nothing. You stand your ground. You keep cycling. You have every right to be there. And of course that's true. So the vehicular cyclists expect us to tolerate that anytime it happens. They expect us to tolerate the occasional super close pass. This is the second part of the video is going to be all the weird crap that they expect us to tolerate, and which they claim happens very, very rarely as long as you are confident and assertive. And really, I mean, I don't know, in an open carry state in the US, does that mean I've got an AK strapped to my back or whatever? Because all this confident and assertive bullshit, like, it results in the stuff that is going to be in the second part of this video. Not in the second video, I'm going to actually do it with using Street View. So that's the vehicular cycling thing. And then my version of it is what I'm going to talk about in the third part of this video, which is as soon as you see the drivers coming up behind you, since you don't feel like even giving them the opportunity to bully you, even though, like, okay, not all drivers, of course. The thing is, they're right. Very few drivers are into bullying cyclists. It's like somewhere between 1 in 5 and 1 in 20. There's maybe 1 in 10. I always say, like, if all drivers drove the way most drivers do, vehicular cycling would be dope. It would be awesome. And I would love that. That would be so cool. I would prefer that to a whole bunch of bike lanes everywhere, because then we would end up with what happens on Dundas Street West during rush hour in the summertime, which is there's so many cyclists that we take over the curb lanes. The drivers are doing 40 because driving's slow, and they don't bother popping out into the curb lanes, so they're in single file. The cyclists have a whole lane, so the fast cyclists can pass the slow cyclists. And the driver behavior becomes more or less civilized, because there's no advantage to being aggressive, because there's only one lane to work with. So that's where vehicular cycling totally succeeds. It's awesome. It's so cool. But, you know, not so much on like Shepherd or Jane or whatever. Like on a street like Jane, if I'm in the curb lane, I'm in the middle of the lane, I'm doing 40 on my road bike, I'm doing everything right. And I've got 3 drivers coming up from behind me. They're all in the main lane. None of them are in my lane. They're all in the main lane next to me. Jane is a 4-lane road in the place I'm talking about. I know the last one. I know there's a good chance that one of these 3 drivers is going to pop out from behind the other one and try to use my lane to pass the other ones. They're going to see that I'm there. They don't give a shit because they've got an opportunity to bully someone. They're probably the same drivers who are bullying the other drivers and fucking with them all the time. They're the people who graduated high school but never mentally graduated high school. And driving gives them an opportunity every single day to bully people. And this is why everybody's buying SUVs, is because everybody's sick of getting bullied by the people in the SUVs. So, what I end up telling this person who asked me, where do I go on the road? I'm like, wherever you want. And then you keep looking behind you. And when the drivers are coming up behind you, even if they're not in your lane, if they're going faster than you're going, you just get off the road. You just get off to the side. If you need to, you get all the way off the road, stand around on the sidewalk with your bike. Or otherwise, you just get right to the edge of the road. Your tires are right on the edge. You got your foot on the sidewalk. The curb lane's wide enough that it's really not an issue. And you just wait there till the road's clear. And when it's clear, you get back on the road. Cool. This is what I've ended up calling traffic surfing, which sounds so shitty, and it is. But it does allow me access to the main roads. And it is a variation of vehicular cycling. But it's taboo to mention this because for the vehicular cyclists, from their point of view, this is me scaremongering and saying drivers can't be trusted. And it's true, only 90% of them can. The problem with vehicular cycling is it requires cooperation from 100% of the drivers. Only 90% of them are willing to cooperate, and if they're going faster than you, 100 of them are going to pass you on every commute. And so even if 99% of them are cool, there's that one bully. And really, it's more like 90% of them. So you're getting passed by 100 drivers, you're going to get bullied by 10 of them. So maybe I'm right and it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 10. Maybe the vehicular cyclists are right and it's 1 in 1,000. But I want to do this until I'm dead from old age without ever going to the hospital. And every time some driver who's into bullying tries to do what we call a punishment pass, whatever, they risk screwing it up and actually hitting a cyclist. This is what happened in the US recently, where this guy who was trying to roll coal on if you don't know what this is, look up coal rolling. It's amazing. It's incredible. He was trying to roll coal on some cyclists who were training for something, ended up smashing into 6 of them, and it was a huge, terrible collision. He was trying to bully them. He was trying to haze them, and he fucked it up and ended up killing some people. So if this was just a matter of somebody fucking with me every once in a while, that's fine. People fuck with me every once in a while anyway. I can handle it. I'm an adult. But people who are into bullying are not always the best drivers. I mean, Toronto drivers are really good. They are very good at controlling their vehicles. When they are trying to almost hit a cyclist, they almost always get it absolutely right. Like, they can do precision tactical driving really, really well. God, I hand it to them. And like, Toronto drivers are so good. People say all sorts of bullshit on the internet, but a lot of people go, oh yeah, the drivers here are terrible. They're not. They're really good. Like, almost all of them are totally following the law, very careful, very awesome. It's really, as many of them as there are bullies, there's this other type who are like yielding to me when they don't have to. They're leaving me so much room when they're passing me that it's dangerous, and they're like moving into oncoming traffic when they can't see whether it's oncoming, and I'm like, you're putting your life at risk just to demonstrate to me this like extreme show of solidarity. If they and the crazy bullies just canceled each other out, or they just all decide to stop driving, I'd be fine. And everybody could just go and take the CAN bike course and bike safely on the road for their commutes all their lives, no problem, without incident, and we would not need bike lanes. Like, we actually wouldn't. I mean, except for the fact that then, you know, the cyclists would be stuck in traffic when we're not really contributing to the congestion, and we would still be subject to the congestion. And that, you know, that kind of sucks. Apart from that, though, from a strictly safety perspective, and in terms of like all of our arterial roads and stuff like that, if it weren't for this, like, you know, impressively small minority of drivers, considering that there's no enforcement, it is an impressively small minority of drivers who are really into bullying and who are doing it all the time, so they're causing like a lot of damage. We would totally never have to put bike lanes on Trethewey Road, for example. It's this road that goes out into one of Toronto's suburbs. It's going to end up getting bike lanes. We would never have had to put bike lanes on Scarlet Drive. There would have been no need. And perhaps that's as good a place as any to start the next part of my video, detailing my attempt at making vehicular cycling work. So let's get into it. Let's get into the horror stories I have for you. So check it out. This is, yeah, yes, it is. My setup is legit. Okay. Oh, it's in Etobicoke, isn't it? Okay, fine. I'm in Etobicoke. Cool. Let's go. It's in Etobicoke. It's just beyond the junction. You know, this neighborhood can't figure out what it is. There's a brewery, High Park Brewery. Yeah, okay, buddy. Yeah, sure, you're in High Park. That's High Park, right? Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, all right, friend. Oh, Junction Craft Brewery, sure. Yeah, okay, yeah. You're really in the junction here, buddy. Yeah, right. No, this neighborhood doesn't know what to call itself. And it's got issues, and one of the issues is right here. This is where the cycling ends. This is where the cyclists turn back. This is where the Strava map goes dark and whatever. So putting a bike lane in here was like a huge deal. And before the bike lane went in, me cycling here was like, oh my God, what the fuck are you doing? You crazy bastard. So this is what it's like now, but let's go back into, can you go back in time? Yes, let's go back in time to when it was like this. All right, so I'm cycling along. I'm in the middle of the curb lane. I'm doing 40, you know, no problem, no big deal. I'm looking back. I'm making sure to acknowledge the drivers, right? I'm making sure if I do, like, you know, start slowing a whole bunch of them down, that, yeah, I'll pull into one of these side streets, signaling first, of course, and release them. But there's not really any drivers. It was pretty much like this. I mean, no, there was fewer people than this. There was one person behind me. And so when I'm right about here, this one person behind me basically comes out of nowhere going super fast and then is tailgating me. And, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's a microaggression. But let's talk about even before this. I'm downtown. I'm on Queen going past Dufferin. No big deal, you know. Conditions were not like this. It was before rush hour, so during that time of day, this curb lane, both of these curb lanes were full of parked cars. So there's just these two lanes active, and so basically this is the right turn lane. There's people turning right. I didn't want to get in the way of the people turning right, so I'm here in the main lane. I'm doing the same speed as the drivers. Tons of drivers on the road. Everybody's basically doing 30 or 40. I'm doing 30 or 40, and I'm right about here, and one of the drivers needs to cut in front of me. Maybe about a foot away from me. No big deal, right? I should be able to handle that. So let's see. There's this other time. I'm on Dundas. I'm approaching Ossington. This part of town, I mean, this is where most of Toronto's cyclists are. So we're both approaching Ossington. It's rush hour, so there's no parked cars in the curb lanes. I'm in the middle of the curb lane. I'm going pretty damn fast. Like, I'm going like pretty much 40. Coming up to a red light. I'm not slowing anybody down. Right in the middle of the curb lane. And right here, this driver cuts in front of me. They really needed to be in front of me at this stoplight. Absolutely needed to be there. Absolutely needed to be there. This person could not handle being behind me at this stoplight. But it's more like they really needed me to give up on cycling. They were a bully. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. So that was, that was pretty nerve-wracking. That was pretty brutal. There was no real reason. So this other time, this is a horrendous stretch along here, by the way. So this other time, going past the park here. I'm westbound. Same basic thing. I'm in the curb lane. I didn't really need to be in the main lane. Right about here, so I'm like right there. Right about here, this driver cuts me off so close that his mirror clips one of my the straps that's kind of flapping on my backpack. This is like not even on a green light, on a red light. We're both stopped right here. But, of course I'm lying about all this because I'm trying to promote bike lanes. Because, I don't know, CycleTO pays my bills or something like that. I don't know what the vehicular cyclists actually think. I don't think they, I think they're saboteurs. So, this other time, chilling on Dundas, going west through this intersection. I'm not in the right turn lane because people are turning right. There's no reason for me to be in the right turn lane. I'm doing the same speed as the drivers, going westbound across this intersection. So when I'm right about here, this driver comes up from my right and merges into my fucking lane while I'm there. Merges into me. We were both going across the street. We were both going at the same speed. I never had a chance to see whether there was somebody tailgating me from behind. I think I was aware of somebody who's right behind me, so I couldn't really stop. I don't know. There's nothing I could really do. I'm ringing my bell as this person is shoving me over into the oncoming traffic lane. Fortunately, the person who's coming from this way stopped and was just shocked this is going on. The driver didn't get away because there was a whole bunch of other drivers over here anyway. There was no excuse for doing this. It was just bullying. Bullies just do this because they can. They're into it. It's fun. I understand. It's fun. I know why it's fun. So, just like this, there was parking all up in here. So, I had every opportunity to get a good description of the vehicle, got the plate. Actually, I memorized the plate as I was chasing the driver through here. They turned up, I think they turned up Augusta and chased them all the way around this park. We ended up going like past the hospital. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it was completely fucking crazy. So they go all the way up here. I chased them around the hospital. They went back through here. I'm on this person. And this is after, like, I had every opportunity at this point here to, like, vandalize their vehicle or some crazy thing, you know, which keeps happening. Driver attacks cyclist. Cyclist vandalizes car. I mean, it happens all the time. I didn't do that. I got a description of the vehicle, and I was like, hey, stick around. And so I'm chasing them. But I never did get an opportunity to see what the driver looked like. I didn't get a description of the driver because, I mean, what am I going to say? It's a sunny day. Everybody's got windows that are so reflective you can't see inside them. People always, they're always spouting this bullshit like, make eye contact with drivers. Give me a fucking break. You know, look and see if a driver is waving you through. Are you fucking kidding me? No. You can't see any of the drivers. They don't want to be seen inside their vehicles. Privacy is great. No, you can't see them. So they ended up getting away. So I go to the police station. I've got a full description of the vehicle. I've got the plate number and everything like that. And they're like, so what did the driver look like? I'm like, I don't remember what the fucking driver looked like. I didn't see them. They're like, well, make something up. Make something up? Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not going to make something up. I'm not going to like lie in my statement. They're like, well, if you can't tell us what the driver looked like, then we can't tell who they were and whether or not they were somebody who was just borrowing the car, so we won't be able to charge anybody. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Drivers know this. This is why everybody knows they can get away with this type of nonsense with like absolute impunity. I was gonna, wait to make this video. I was gonna wait till I had till I'd thought about all of the incidents that I've experienced, or till I thought of more. But whatever, doesn't matter. These are main crazy, ridiculous ones that I remember. So after all this bullshit, I'm like, yeah, vehicular cycling is crap. It's garbage. It doesn't work because it completely denies the realities of how people actually act on the road. So now I'm going to go back and tell you how I use all these places now. Queen going through Dufferin. Didn't have a bike lane then, still doesn't have a bike lane now, probably never will. Oh yeah, a high school teacher got run over here, I think. Yeah, same spot. So anyway, in this spot, and in places like this, these days when I'm going westbound, I'm looking back behind me. If this is the situation behind me, I'm like, okay. If the drivers behind me are doing the same speed as me, I'm like, all right, okay, I'll just keep going. If they are approaching me, then boom, I am right here, waiting for the road to clear on my bike. Because I don't feel like finding out whether or not they are one of these 1 in 10 drivers who's a total crazy bully. I don't give a shit anymore. I don't want to find that out. I'm not curious about them. I don't care. Let's see over here on down to St. Ossington. Same exact thing. Same exact thing. And these roads are so overkill anyway. There's so much extra capacity that I do 40 down the middle of Dundas all the time. If it's like this behind me, I do 40 all the time. Oh, that's fine. That's cool. If it's like this behind me, if I look back and I see this, I'm like, okay, this guy going faster than me or slower than me? If this guy's going faster than me, then this right here is where you'll find me. I will be right here waiting for the road to clear. I'll get back in the main lane. Keep going. This is what is so offensive to both the vehicular cyclists and the newbie cyclists who are like, but I've studied the law, and the law says I can use the lane as long as I go in a predictable straight line. And this is the thing. I can't just point anybody in the direction of some authority on safe cycling. I can't just say, okay, yeah, no, the city has some good brochures on this. And if you really want, you can take the CAN bike cycling course. I can't say that to anybody. There's no cyclist version of Young Drivers of Canada that works. So this is my problem. This and the fact that the vehicular cyclists do crazy, crazy, crazy stuff to keep the weirdness going, keep the sabotage going. So I used to be part of this group, this Cycling in Toronto or Toronto Cyclists or something like that Facebook group. And I kept getting into these same arguments with these vehicular cyclists over and over again. The type I was talking to you about before, where it's like, no, you're not doing it right. No, the results are not what you claim they are, and we're denying each other's experiences and whatever. And they took over the Facebook group as admins and banned me. No problem, there's another group. So in this other group, we start talking about how do you make left turns. And a vehicular cyclist who just happens to be a CAN bike safety instructor can go ahead and say, yeah, make vehicular left turns. It's great. And if you can't make a vehicular left turn, you can always get off your bike and use the crosswalk as a pedestrian. If you can't manage to be assertive enough to use the road as a driver would on your bicycle, then you could get off your... Okay, and I'm like, no, there is another alternative. You just make a right turn, make a U-turn, and then go straight through. Or you go straight through and then make a U-turn and make a right turn. And of course, like, you make the U-turn when the road's clear. But it's a lot easier to find a place to, like, it's so much easier to do this than it is to make a vehicular left turn work. Vehicular left turns, they're one of the things that sucks so much about driving. It's one of the things I don't miss. It's one of the reasons that I feel lucky to be a cyclist. I'm like, all the defensive driving techniques I learn in Young Drivers, I can take them so much further as a cyclist. Because I can do stuff that drivers can't do. Because, like, for a driver, you basically, you're a fish in a barrel. You're stuck. You have to make these left turns across, like, 2 or 3 lanes of oncoming traffic. When you got people honking at you from behind, you got to wait there for the people in front of you to do this. But as a cyclist, because my turning radius is so tight, and because I can just get off the road and not take up any space and totally get out of the way and wait till it's clear, I can totally just make left turns without making any left turns, just by doing a sequence of right turns and U-turns and going straight through. Just like turn any intersection into a roundabout by kind of not using the intersection. I'm like, the only thing I'm using the intersection for is right turns, which is the easiest possible thing to do. And then I'm going however far it takes to reach a spot where I can make a U-turn there, or I can wait for the road to be clear, make a U-turn, and then I can go straight through, or make another right turn, or whatever. The other thing that, like, sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do as a cyclist is just go through an intersection on the green light. Because you got the drivers coming at you, making a left turn, and they're trying to bully you out of the way, or they're trying to bully you into stopping and yielding when you have the right of way, whatever. Then you got the drivers coming up on you from behind, trying to make a right turn across you. And then you got the drivers coming from your right, who are trying to make a right turn in front of you. And when all of this happens during the same crossing, you can end up like not even making it across the intersection before the green phase is done, and you're stuck there, blocked by some driver who's making a right turn in front of you, while the light turns red, and there's drivers coming at you from your right. It's fucking ridiculous. So sometimes I avoid going straight through the intersection by just making a right turn, doing a U-turn, and making another right turn. It's brilliant. It's awesome. I've been doing this for years. I do this every day. This is exactly what the vehicular cyclists claim. They claim like, oh, I make vehicular left turns every day. I've been doing this for decades. It's no problem because I'm so assertive or something. So, okay, fair enough. Somebody wants to promote vehicular left turns on Facebook. That's cool. I'm not really cool with it because I'm like, okay, I'm done with this vehicular cycling nonsense. I'm not suffering this. So I make a couple of snarky comments. Come back later to, not that much later, like pretty quickly, I'm like, I get so triggered by these vehicular cyclists. I gotta stop like getting snarky with people on Facebook. So I come back to edit the snarkiness out of my comments, hopefully before too many people see them. Or, make further comments saying, look, I'm sorry for being friggin' snarky. It's just, I get... Let me rephrase myself. I've tried this. This isn't working for me because of this. That's my plan, but suddenly I can't see the post anymore. The person's blocked me, so I can't see it. And one of my comments has been deleted. I don't know whether it's the comment that I made where I suggested my alternative, which is the, make a right turn, make a U-turn and go straight through, or go straight through, make a U-turn and then make a right turn. So because I can't see any of this, and because I do want my alternative to this to be visible, I do want to, promote a safe alternative to what I perceive as dangerous advice. Right? That's reasonable. So next day I make my own post saying like, okay, for those of you who, don't want to do a vehicular left turn, and when you don't feel like you want to get off your bike and use the crosswalks as a pedestrian walking your bike, let's say it's too busy or something, there's too many pedestrians, whatever, I have another option for you. And just describe the option, and I'm like we all got told in elementary school, you can accomplish something difficult by taking one large difficult task and breaking it up into small, more manageable chunks. Made sure not to be snarky about it, whatever. Post got deleted. I got told by the admins, stop advocating unsafe cycling practices. So now I'm waiting to hear back from them about what makes that unsafe. So I'm real curious to see how vehicular cyclists who want to advocate cyclists making vehicular left turns think that vehicular U-turns are super dangerous. I can't wait to hear about that. And I totally hope that vehicular cyclists are not taking over Facebook groups in order to use them as propaganda tools for a message that tends to not work for people, and that I feel turns people who want to be commuter cyclists into drivers. I sincerely hope that that's not happening. So, I mean, it leaves me wondering, like, who gets to decide what constitutes safe cycling practice? Because when the government puts out something saying, here's what's safe for cyclists to do on the road, I look at it and I'm like, that's bullshit. I'm not doing that. I see people doing that. Yeah, this is why there's so many cyclists in the hospital. You guys are full of shit. You're trying to get us all killed. Fuck you. That's what I think about most of the stuff that the government on any level, municipal, provincial, or federal, publishes about, like, this is what you should do as a cyclist. Although all of those things also contain a bunch of pieces of advice that I'm like, yeah, everybody should learn, should do this, should be able to do this. Is it the law that is anything that's legal a safe cycling practice? Because the law allows me to do a whole bunch of things that drivers don't allow me to do. A whole bunch of things that would be safe if drivers allowed me to do them. A whole bunch of things that are safe most of the time. I've tried it because most drivers do allow cyclists to do stuff that's legal, but not all. And I need more cooperation than most. So who gets to decide what constitutes a safe cycling practice? Is it the CAN bike people who learned their stuff from John Forrester, the controversial saboteur of cycling in the US, and his method that has produced, like, on paper, it's not successful. Almost all vehicular cyclists are male. Almost all casualties on American roads who are cyclists are male. The rates of cycling are abysmal. Vehicular cycling as a way to make cycling work, as a way to allow people to do it, as a way to make it popular, has been a total failure. It's never worked. It hasn't worked anywhere. So are the CAN bike instructors the ones who decide what constitutes a safe cycling practice? Is it the cycling community in general? Is it any cyclist who can prove that they are commuting regularly and neither breaking the law nor getting into any close calls, nor doing anything dangerous? Or is it Facebook admins? Or, for that matter, is it Reddit admins? Or whatever? Is it YouTube moderators? Am I right now guilty of promoting unsafe practices? Am I putting other people at risk? Like, when somebody is like, how do I do this? How do I commute on my bike? I'm like, well, okay, fuck, how much time do you have? And we get to the part where I'm like, okay, you have to, anytime you feel that weird, anytime you feel uncomfortable, anytime you feel scared, whatever, you can just get off the road. You always make sure that you can get off the road at any time. That's offensive to them. That's offensive to new cyclists, and it's offensive to the vehicular cyclists. And I always find myself stuck in the middle here, because there's the vehicular cyclists who I think are gaslighting other cyclists. I see this as an issue of what do you call it? Lateral violence within a violently oppressed minority. And we're talking about, just riding your bike on the road. Like that's a little bit intense. That the type of politics that usually apply to like feminists or the Black Lives Matter movement or something like that are also active within fucking cycling. Like, why, people? Why? And of course, there's so few cyclists. Who would choose to be part of a violently oppressed minority who cannot even discuss that oppression amongst themselves without getting gaslit and fucked with by each other? Like, this is reminding me a little bit too much of feminism here, or other movements. I'm like, why is cyclists having access to the roads that we fucking pay for? Why is that a social justice movement that is subject to the same bullshit that the other social justice movements are subject to? That's ridiculous. It's just, you're just getting somewhere. You're just like, you see. But of course, there is North America's largest industry kind of mixed into the thing. I don't think it's a coincidence that Holland doesn't have auto manufacturing industry. And it just happens to be the only place where, it happens to be the place with the best cycling infrastructure and the best safety record for cyclists, and where cycling is the most popular. Happens to be a place it's England, the cycling situation sucks, they make their own cars. Germany, the cycling situation sucks in most places, and they make their own cars. America, make their own cars, cycling sucks. Canada, we absolutely rely on manufacturing cars. The cycling situation sucks here. So there's the vehicular cyclist gaslighting me from one angle, and then there's the bike lane advocates on the other side who, like, I'll end this video by telling you a very weird story. So I'm meeting up with two other cyclists to check out the Scarlet Road bike lanes after they first went in. And so before getting there, I think one of them was coming from downtown, the other one was coming from, I don't know where the other one was coming from. But we decided to meet up. At like Runnymede and Dundas. That's where we decided to meet up. Why? Because this is the place where, for a cyclist coming from the downtown, you can ask them to meet you here and they can find their way here. To give somebody directions to get from here to the Scarlet Road bike lane, just that is like too complicated. So we met them here and decided to escort them. And the person we're meeting up with is like a journalist or something. And so we go through the neighborhood on this route that it's gonna be turned into like like an official side street route or something to connect the Runnymede Road bike lane with the Scarlet Road bike lane. That's gonna be good. I mean, if you know where you're going, then it's no problem getting through here. It's sort of a problem, but it's not really easy to know where you're going. I guess they're going to have to build some kind of connection between, I don't know what they're going to do to get through here. Anyway, so the route that we decided to take was we're going to take like, I don't know, I think we were going to go through Corbett and down Florence Crescent and over to Eileen. I think that's the way I was taking these guys. So we come to here, and I wait for Jane to clear. There's no signals here. I wait for Jane to clear. I bike across, and then I'm here, and they won't follow me. Jane's still totally clear. These two other cyclists will not follow me across the road. These are both they're super safety. Both got helmets on. I'm not a helmet user, and they will not cross this road without help. They will not go across it. And so they're trying to figure out what to do, and I'm cycling back and forth across Jane. I think I ended up doing a circle in the middle of this intersection because, I don't know, Jane is so massive that the drivers just end up moving in waves, and those waves are sometimes a minute apart. So Jane is vacant completely for minutes at a time. It's not during rush hour. This is a time of day where it's mid-afternoon or something. So while these guys are figuring out what to do in order to cross this empty road, I'm like, guys, it's fine. You can cross it. It's fine. So they ended up walking their bikes over to here, crossing the intersection on the crosswalk on the light, walking their bikes back. And then we continued our journey. And it was cool. The rest of our hangout was neat, but I will never forget that. And when the vehicular cyclists talk about how cyclists need to get literate in traffic and recognize that we can use the road, we don't need special stuff to use the road. After these kind of experiences with these other super timid cyclists, I kind of understand that. These are people who, without a bike lane going down it, they won't touch it. And, I'm really at a loss about that. I can't relate to the type of cyclist who's going to tell me, well, if you can't do a vehicular left turn in traffic, okay, you want me to, you want me to, right here, DuPont and Lansdowne. I'm leaving the downtown. I'm done with my shopping. I'm going back to my hood. So you want me to do this left turn from here across over there? Cool. Sometimes I'm down with that. Sometimes that's no problem. And yeah, sometimes I get off my bike and just do the thing as a pedestrian, because I can. Sometimes it's simpler. But I can't relate to the kind of person who's going to tell me that when I run into problems with drivers, passing by me super close like this, or drivers cutting in front of me super close, or screeching to a stop behind me and then revving their engine, or whatever. I can't relate to the kind of person who's going to tell me that that's because I'm not fucking being assertive enough. What the fuck are you guys talking about? You kidding me? I can't relate to them, and I also can't relate to the kind of person who is not willing to bike across a completely empty arterial road. I am absolutely stuck in the middle here. I also can't understand why some Facebook admins would want to make themselves decide what pieces of advice for how to get around the road the community would actually be able to see, would make themselves arbiters of what does and does not constitute safe cycling, and then use their admin powers to enforce that through censorship. That's as if being an admin isn't, enough of a task. You want to hook yourself up with that responsibility? What? Are you sure? Because I wouldn't. Like, that's not your responsibility. Are you kidding me? That's what I want to say to them. So let's conclude this. That's the story. That's the vehicular cyclists. I can't with these people. I mean, they've made sure that I can't with them because they always end up blocking me on Facebook, but I can't with these people. And I still don't have anything that I can tell somebody who's trying to switch their commutes to cycling. Unless I'm like, okay, look, I've thought of saying to people like, okay, let's use Google Maps Street View, and I can explain what I do. And I'm going to get a camera for my bike so I can demonstrate what I do. Hopefully that'll be useful. But there is no place that I can tell somebody to go to learn how to do this safely. Because the CAN bike people are insane, the government advice is insane, and the bike lanes don't connect up. And between the bike lanes, you got to do vehicular cycling to go to where you want. To make vehicular cycling work, you have to do stuff that the vehicular cyclists don't want you to do. The whole thing is just such a freaking catastrophe. And meanwhile, I have awesome commutes all the time, and cycling is great because I do this thing that I'm not allowed to describe on Facebook. Like, what the fuck? All right, have a good commute, everyone.